Welcome to Applying AI, the show where we cut through the hype and get real about using artificial intelligence in regulated industries. I'm Adam Parks, joined by my season one co host, Mike Walsh from EXL. Each month, we'll bring real world stories and strategies from leaders applying AI to streamline operations and boost the customer experience, all while staying compliant. No jargon, no science fiction, just practical insights you can put to work today. Season one of Applying AI is presented by Receivables Info and sponsored by EXL. Let's dive in. So, Mike, I know I've had the pleasure of knowing you for many, probably too many years at this point. But for anyone who has not been as lucky as me to get to know you, could you tell everyone a little about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Got in the collection business in 1996, right out of college. Worked for traditional collection agencies, BPL. I worked at VoApps. I managed sales at True Accord for a little bit. Got into Everchain, where I did some sales over there as well. So I've done the gamut in this business from traditional collections in terms of selling, setting up programs, client success, and now on the AI side, where we're here at EXL, we have some great technology and it can be used by creditors at collection agencies as well as debt buyers as well. It's been a fun journey and it's been a long one, dinosaur in this business. Everybody is, right? Once you get in, you can't get out. It's like the mom.
Well, like, it's a lot of technology that you've been through between the traditional sales, working on technology related projects, then working with the first, it's called digital first agency that was out there, working for a tech enabled debt broker, and then obviously ending with EXL here, where you're doing all kinds of different tools related to debt collection as it relates to artificial intelligence and being able to deploy these things. For me, it was a little bit different. I came in as a debt buyer, on a technology enabled organization. We were a debt buyer. We became a broker and done compliance related tools and other things that are related to the technology pieces. But I've only really dug into the artificial intelligence pieces over the last couple of years. And I think that's a great way, Mike, for us to transition into talking about the state of artificial intelligence in the debt collection industry. Because I just want to point out, as the author of the TransUnion Debt Collection Industry Report for the last few years, 3 years ago, we had more than 60% of debt collection companies saying that they would never touch artificial intelligence. Last year, it was 24%, which I thought was a dramatic shift. And now we're down to 7% in the 2025 survey results. That's a pretty big shift between saying, I'm never going to use something, to actively engaging in trying to deploy that type of technology. I mean, it's been really condensed. You've been with EXL for about that same time period now. What are you seeing in terms of the current state of the union related to AI in the debt collection space?
I think those numbers are 100% accurate. I really do. Because, and I think the ones holding out are probably commercial, although we have a product that can work with commercial. AI can help commercial agencies as well. But I get it there. It's not as, volume driven. It's not as repetitive. It's not as clear a use case. So, but I think you're right. The switch started, I saw the switch at the beginning of 2024 happening. And then I think what also happened in 2024, 25 is the products out there just got way better. Technology is way better. It's incredible. I've been at EXL for 2.5 years. We don't use our old, when I started and we started talking, the demo I gave you is no longer right. Like it's 2 years, and the new product is, the agentic AI virtual agent compared to like what I think a lot of people call generative, because they use an LLM is the only generative part of it, but is the templated based AI you find out there it's two different worlds, right? It's a true conversation versus you said this keyword was understood, this utterance, I'm going to give you this template. So just for that fact, debt collections, it's if the math works, this industry will find it. The math and compliance works, this industry will find a way to use it. And nobody wants to be the first to jump in, but people have jumped in. It's been out and around.
Well, over that time period, I think that we've more finitely defined the use cases of artificial intelligence. So now it's not just this theory. It's how can we actually apply the artificial intelligence to our day to day operations? And when we think about the use cases and how they've changed over time, the first companies that came to our space that used artificial intelligence, and I'm using air quotes when I say it, were really focused on scoring. It was all about using machine learning to improve predictability and scoring into the future. And then it started to evolve. Then it started to evolve into content creation, content context, and it started moving down that path. But now we've moved into these more refined use cases. And as those use cases have been deployed by different organizations around the space, the comfort level has increased because when a creditor has had success with agency A, then when agency B, C, D, and E want to do something similar, the fear factor is lessened and it's more likely that they're going to be able to go forward.
Yeah. And it's weird. This is I think creditors are leading this time. I think just because of the nature of business, right? Like, take the banks, for example. They see so many use cases, right? They have so much data. They have such effective, possibilities or, like to use AI within debt collections and out of it that I think they've jumped first, which was not what I anticipated completely, but I think they're kind of leading. Like we've had more banking customers, for example, in the US than collection agencies, but that is changing quickly.
Well, that's interesting, Mike, because one of the things that I saw when we broke down the debt collection industry survey this year for TU was that creditors were very likely to be using artificial intelligence, but they were the most likely to be using a third party service versus trying to develop something internally. And I know when you and I were at RMAI, we talked briefly about why that might be. Why might the creditors be so focused on these third party tools? And I think it's because they're realizing that their core business is lending, not collecting, and not building artificial. They're not a technology company, they're a financial institution. And so leveraging those third party services that have already demonstrated some success is the least common denominator to get there. And I had done a webinar with somebody from a bank back in the end of 2025 where they were talking with me about the challenges they had deploying any new technology, how many different departments they had to get resources from, and all the things that had to happen in order for them to have a successful deployment. And while it's a lot shorter of a path for them to do that when they can plug something in versus having to try and develop that. And then me, you, and Tim Collins did a session back in December of 2024 with the buy it or build it discussion. Do we buy artificial intelligence technology or are we going to build it? And if we're going to build it, what kind of responsibilities long term does that ultimately entail?
Maintenance, right? Like maintenance updates,
Yeah.
and I think Tim and all of us kind of agreed. And that I think too is because they had multiple use cases. I think some banks built some of it, right? But they were smart enough to say, we can't build all this. We can't.
No,
There's only
it's a big
so much.
lift.
And even the agencies or debt buyers I talk to, and they're like, hey, we're thinking about building yourself. And I always say, try ours while you build it because it's a lot and you're going to who's going to do it? Are you going to hire new? Who's going to be responsible for it? There's designing, implementing, maintaining, and then getting the most out of the tool, right? Like data science or data analysts that can use this to optimize your current collection processes, and then change the ones that are outdated. You're not going to, you put in AI, you're not going to wake up and make 30,000 phone calls that day. It just doesn't make sense, right? So things are going to change. Like the industry's changing, and it's changing, I think, for the better. Quickly. Technology is also changing, and you can use more AI tools to do more aspects and make them more efficient, whether it's talking to customers or doing your books, doing your accounting, doing your payment process. There's so many, and you've covered the use case groups, and then when you dig into them, there's so much, audits, everything,
Well,
RFPs.
speaking of the use cases, I think it's important that we address the 6 use cases for AI and debt collection. And I think even in this conversation, I may even add a seventh that I've been considering for a period now. But the first one being data enrichment and segmentation. So actually being able to use artificial intelligence and machine learning to understand the data sets, to be able to reach into other data, bring it in, that improve our overall data hygiene and improve our ability to collect because we have better data than we had the day before. The next one being consumer communication and engagement, which I think is a major factor, right? In terms of being able to make the outbound calls, and that could come in a couple of different flavors. Workflow automation and efficiency, compliance monitoring and quality control, predictive analytics and scoring models, which I think is where we all started, and training and agent enablement. So talking in the agent's ear, demonstrating something like a Zenerate where you have the new collectors through a training program calling in, going through these example calls and those kinds of things. But going back to the beginning here, Mike, I thought it would be interesting for us to kind of talk our way through some of these in terms of what we've seen and kind of where it fits into the spectrum of the debt collection world, and within, how much of this is going to actually make it to the technology stacks of debt collection companies. But data enrichment and segmentation, I think, is something that we started with early on and is mission critical because I'm going to say, a somewhat simplistic process that can benefit from some automation, but at the same time, it's something that we're doing a lot of manual work with today that maybe we don't need to.
I agree with you. I also think we're looking at it like the way we're going to look at the data. Just take a collection agency, for example. The way they're going to look at their data is going to change, right? With tools. Because if you think about how many transactions a collection agency is just pulling a day, right? Like just that, there's a tremendous amount of data. And then how many payment plans they're running every day and how many break, how many continue, how many get readjusted. That there's a need there to look at that more uh, with AI, for example, and get those trends and get, we're pushing these people to $100 when they can only pay 75, and it's hurting us in the long run because they break and then they're going to go pay someone else. But like there's tools, like there's a way we're going to have to look at this that I think is changing. And what AI can do for you is graph that out, make it very simple to understand. Your team can use that data because collection agencies have a ton of data. People always say, "Hey, my data's not ready yet." It's ready.
Yeah.
This is my
It
number
was ready
one.
yesterday.
You've been ready for this for 20 years. I mean, this industry, because if you're not, you're getting sued, and you're out of business, right? Like we are highly regulated and that data has to be clean. Like if most agencies I worked at, if the data was wrong, we sent that account back. Like if it didn't have all the
Well, the
fields.
data hygiene, I think, is an important piece here. And so when it comes to artificial intelligence, the quality of the data will either amplify the solution or the problem. And if your data is bad, it's going to amplify the problem. And that is an issue that we need to address as an industry. So I think the ability to leverage
I think our account data
automation.
is
Go ahead.
crystal clean, right? I think the data, maybe our reporting data needs work just to optimize it. I think some of the back end stuff like our audit data, that I don't think we've optimized that yet, but there's tools out there that do it, right? Like, so I think that's coming along. I think that has been an early use case that's proven. QA audits were there, but I think our data as an industry is very good. And I've done implementations with 7 data sources. It's there somewhere. It's just where you're pulling it from. And once you pull it, you're fine. It's just setting it up to pull it. And, once you do it, the headache's over and you get through it. And it's generally not as hard as people think.
Human readable and machine readable are two different solutions.
Correct. That's a very good
And so
point.
I think just because it's in 7 different locations doesn't mean that we can't bring it together to be understood by the machine and carry context. But I think that's the differentiator in our minds is like, well, I can't see it the way that I want to see it, so it's not ready. But not
Right.
thinking about the fact that the machine does not look at it through the same lens that I look
Machine
at it
pulls it.
through as a human.
Yeah. Machine pulls it into one place and then spits it out for you. So it's easy, right? Like you're right. That is a very good point. I'm stealing that, by the way.
Well, I know we're going to be having some more conversations about this as well as we go into some of the other episodes that we have planned for this particular series. But use case number 2, consumer communication and engagement. I feel like this is the world that you live in. Like you live and die particular space. Talk to me about how that has changed and what you think the industry is looking for in its next step.
So in 2.5 years at EXL, this has changed for the better. And, two-way SMS, chatbots, virtual agent, it's all improved. Virtual agent made a huge leap, and is much better. And now I think now we're looking as not as an industry, is this going to work? Is it real? We're looking at, show me a case study. How did you perform? And that's a difference from when the day I started to now. And I think what's great about that is more people are open, more people are listening, more people are exploring it. I always tell people, if you don't like it, don't use it, but take the demo. Like, listen to this world, because we as consumers are getting more used to talking to AI. The technology as of February last year, has totally changed. And it's changed for the way better. The use cases are more and more. The collections are proven now. It's a cool time to be in this industry, because you can do a lot with the same amount of people. You can cover. I mean, to me, it's about scalability of who you can contact. Like, phone calls are now not only for 250 and above, right? Like, they're for 50 and above, or 25 and above. Like, it's going to change how our contact rates. It's going to change the scalability, and it's exciting, because there's so much debt out there right now. You know it more than anybody. It's just incredible. The TransUnion
And
report.
the volumes are just going to continue to rise.
Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy. So everybody's been so busy. Hiring's been a challenge. I think this is going to help. The technology is going to help a lot.
Hiring has been an impossibility for most organizations. So being able to deploy technology that allows you to still maintain the high level of customer service for the consumer without putting them into the IVR death loop. Because no matter how much time and energy you spend building out your IVR, you're still going to have individuals that end up in that.
I'll give you an RMAI example. I did in the hallway right in front of Salt, right? Like, this guy said, I'll never use it. We believe in customer service. And I said, just listen to it. I've known this guy for years. And it was an incredibly smart test. He's like, yeah, let me go get my wallet. That's what he said to the machine. Like, right away after, it's a fake name we identify. He's like, can you make a payment? He's like, yeah, I can, but let me get my wallet. And he's like, he covers it and goes, this is usually where, I'm out and it breaks. But it said, sure, take your time. Like, that is with all the noise, it's not quiet there.
Oh,
All
no.
the background, it's a mess, right?
Yeah.
And that's the sort of little things that have changed, where, hold on while I get my wallet, that type of thing. And it templated is like, there's no template for that,
No.
So
There's too many potential possibilities and responses for you to template to that level. There's some things that you can, start those engagements, but
works great in
there's
text.
limitations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Works great in text, but you have to go true agentics in voice. You just do.
Which I think is a great tie into the next use case being workflow, automation, and efficiency. Because now we're starting to think about the workflows between it. If we've got the consumer contact pieces, we've got your different pieces of our business, and we've appended data so that we're actually fueling the machine with good gasoline. Now being able to move things throughout our processes should be easier, more accurate, and more efficient over time. And it's only going to get better as it continues to learn how those particular consumers and portfolios are behaving.
I think this is the funnest part. Like, this is my favorite part of the job is like, you can go technical and geek out, but like, how it applies to all AI is, when it's to the consumer, is a engagement tool. And then now we're talking about how collection professionals, people who've been doing this for a long time, can quickly get information that they can use to improve the process, or test different processes, or test different, like, this is where you can say, okay, they've looked a lot and they've been on our portal looking and they haven't made a payment. They keep trying. What's the problem? Are they waiting for pay? And that leads to questions, right? Like, and you're very good at this app. Like, are they just waiting for payday and they just want to make sure the offer's good? Are they not finding the offer they like? This is that whole e-commerce you discussed at, where was that, DCS or
all the time.
CRS?
Yeah. All of the conferences I talk about e-commerce.
Right. Yeah, sure.
We're an e-commerce business in 10 years, whether or not we want to admit it.
And now you're like, okay, how do we make this easier? How do we make these offers workable? Do they just need a small plan for now until they get a job or pay off, a kid's broken leg or something like that with a there's all these challenges that I think these tools will give, and the agencies themselves or creditors, experts, at buyers, you name it, those people who are in the trenches will take that information and make it even more efficient. We have people coming back with use cases. Hey, we want to do this. It's redundant. It's a waste of time. Can you do this? And then we just build out the customer journey. That's, I think, the funnest part of this technology is your people are going to love it and love the tool to enhance their own people. I always say you're driving more calls to your inbound calls. And, I've been in this business since 96. Inbound calls gold. Human to human is still gold. That's not a bad thing. Driving more of it and doing less wasteful outbound is what you're trying to accomplish. And making those workflows just sing is what I think we're all going to be doing in the next couple of years.
Understanding the context of the consumer engagement and then driving it down the appropriate workflow, especially when it comes to highly sensitive specialty accounts, bankrupt, deceased,
Correct.
cease and desist, like all of those things, and understanding that context and being able to move it down the correct workflow, I think is a value add across the board. It's just another opportunity for us to take the lift off of the limited humans that we're able to hire and still be able to provide the highest levels of customer service for the consumer, which I think is everybody's goal and ties really well into our next use case being compliance monitoring and quality control. This is something we've talked about for years. I think this is one of the earlier use cases that we saw well adopted across the debt collection industry because it's not engaging with the consumer. It's allowing us to amplify our compliance coverage across a wider subset of opportunity. Meaning 5 years ago, we listened to 5% of the calls with live people and we addressed what we heard within that 5%, but that sample size was so small. Now, the same limited resource that we have to listen to calls, right, the same limited volume of live people that we have are now able to focus on those exceptions that are identified by the monitoring tools. And we're able to hyper focus our efforts on those that actually require human intervention, training, etc. And I think that's why that one has become so popular so quickly. But I think this is something that many, many, many organizations are using across the debt collection space at this time.
Yeah, and I think that the change there too is now the coaching is live, the auditing is live, right? Like it's not looking at your tapes anymore. You're doing this while someone's on the phone talking to a customer. So the little pop-up says Mini Miranda, all the disclaimers, all the check, like that easy check that you had people doing the checklist, that's all done on the call, right? Like, and then you're right. Those exceptions kick out those bizarre cases where, the person's flowers, if it's a utility account, will run over and they're not paying until you come fix their flowers. Like I've heard that skull. Like those are the ones that are now kicking to the human being. But the coverage, like, I think it's peace of mind too, for not only creditors or your clients, but you as a agency owner, you can identify sentiment now. Like if someone's loud and getting angry and it's your collector or a call in, you can tell. Like you can pop that up onto your manager saying, have them walk over there with the portable, line and say, take over the call. Like there's so much. So again, these are tools.
Proactive management. It's proactive management of the collectors on the phone, of the live people that you're going to have. I think you can divide off some of your incoming or some of your phone traffic to be managed by a bot, but those that are still being managed by a human, those exceptions, etc. I think you still want to have some monitoring on that and be able to dig deeper there. As our account volumes increase, we have to find new ways to achieve the same level of quality with a larger volume of calls and no additional revenue. So we have to find this balance between those two worlds, which, and I'm going to tie in one of the other use cases here because I think it's similar but not the same, which is the training and agent enablement. It's that ringing in the ear of that agent while they're still on the phone versus that post-call training that comes from the compliance monitoring and quality control. This is more about engaging them in real time to help feed them the information that they need to be successful on the call. And at the same time, do some of these training things where you can call in and have a conversation with the quote unquote, consumer. But now the machine is able to throw some different tricks and ideas at you to help really prepare those collectors to be talking to live consumers on.
I totally agree. And like, are we typing during this podcast? Like, that job is not an easy job, being a collector, right?
Mhm.
So like, now you don't have to type. You can just focus on the customer, helping them solve their problem. And that's what these tools can do. It's amazing. And then, yeah, you have 1 minute to wrap up, just making sure the AI summary is perfect, clean up, maybe add a next step. The next step should be there, but maybe you don't agree with it and changing it. So I think the expertise will still be needed. I also love the idea of too, of like, with all these state laws changing constantly, you can, the AI training, you update it and here's Colorado's new law, like boom. And just, you could train that in like 5 minutes. Like, you don't have to bring a whole class in. There's so much you can do.
You don't have to
Some
burn
people,
as much time off the
yeah,
floor. You're able
correct.
to actively engage with these folks, from their chair, save yourself a whole bunch of, I mean, every time that you're moving everybody in and out of a meeting, I think we've all calculated the true costs of meetings in our organizations. God, I saw something on Instagram on my flight back from RMAI. It was like, what's your job? Email meeting. That's my whole job, email meeting, which I thought was,
There
it's
are
funny, but
great
also
memes of them,
horrible at the
right? Like,
same time.
yeah, they're phenomenal, but yeah, I mean, you save time, you keep those people working and and productive, and you also keep them updated for all these, the CFPBs now 50, I think you said it, or somebody, all right, it's now every state you have to deal with.
Yeah, it's amplified, right? Like we've multiplied the problems. It used to be centralized with the federal government, and now we have all these states going together. Which, thinking about the last use case here as it relates specifically to the debt collection industry was predictive analytics and scoring models. Now, in the survey results for 25, I could see clearly that debt buyers were the most likely to be applying artificial intelligence on this particular use case, which I thought was interesting. I believe that they see it as an opportunity to create a competitive advantage through their scoring methodologies and their behavioral analytics. So I think that's interesting, but definitely something that we're going to see more of. I think it plays into prioritizing accounts and workflows, but it is a different use case altogether.
Yeah, and it's protecting their investment, right? Like, and I believe creditors
Mhm.
have been doing this for a while. Like,
Mhm.
I can tell you, like, EXL has a whole modeling, data analytics. We've done this with tons of creditors across different verticals. And they've been doing it for a while. They've been using, I think it's coming to, debt buyers also have been using it, I think, for a while. I think these are starting to say, let's model this out and see what we should be at. Like, even the scoring models out there, they're getting better in terms of, um, what this should be. But now I think
Well, I think the
the biggest
predictive
difference is,
nature has improved over
right.
time. We've seen the ability of the tool set improve its use case over time, and it's definitely something that I think continues to learn because we're feeding it more structured data and it gets a better understanding of where to go with it. And then there's a whole list of use cases beyond the debt collection industry. And I've been talking for the last like year and a half. I've been talking about the 6 use cases, and I'm curious to get your thoughts about the seventh use case. The seventh use case that I've started to identify is placing accounts directly with an AI first agency. And if an agency is truly AI first, and we saw something similar with digital, and you were at the forefront of that as it was first starting, do you think that that is a separate use case, or is that just the combination of the existing use cases that we have already discussed?
It is, that's a really good, I think it is. I don't know if it's a separate use case. I get this question a lot, really. Like, I think it is and it isn't, right? Like, first party will be AI mostly. I think it's already started that last year before, going in that direction. I still think there's third party relevance, right? Like, there's still consumers that when you send them to an agency, they react, or you sell them and now they're at an agency because the debt buyer owns an agency and they react, or sends it out to an agency, they react. There's still, wow, this is more serious for the group of people, like e-commerce, right? There are people who have that thing. I think I have a pair of shoes in one of my, you know, carts, and I keep getting hammered about it. But I found my old ones, so I didn't buy them yet. But there are still those reminders coming to me because hey, I need them. So I do think yes, I think every agencies will be using AI, creditors will be using AI, debt buyers will be using AI to collect. I think that there's no reason not to. I can't think of one because AI doesn't have a bad day, doesn't call in sick, it doesn't swear at people, it does not do
Let's
anything
hope not.
we worry about, right? Like, so it's gonna be, and people like it.
Mhm.
We always, I think, as an industry, we think of those terrible, death loops. I always tell the story. I'm trying to return a sweatshirt I bought for my brother for his birthday, and it was a nightmare. Um, and I think of that, but then how much I talk to AI on a daily basis. Like, talked to my bank the other day. It was so easy. I went and bought a car and I had to up my debit card limit. It was like, boom. I was like, my wife was in a panic. Like, how are we going to do this? I'm like, I don't know. I don't sell cars. Let me figure it out. And they're like, just call your bank. It was 2 seconds. I was like, that's so easy. Last time I bought a car, you had to get a certified check. It was a nightmare. This was so easy, right? Like, it's just, yeah, we'll do it. We'll send you a link. Bam, doom. But I think we have to start thinking about, like, where is this going? How does it make your e-commerce journey, right? The least clicks, the easiest for the customer. There are tons. I think what's going to also happen is that unstructured data, the behavioral data from what the consumer's already done is going to be structured data that we can now use. Say, okay, they didn't open one email, but they've been texting left and right, right? And they haven't answered the phone once. Am I going to start calling that person? No, like, right? Like,
Hope
that
not.
we know where they've chose, or they're all over. They're using all three, right? Like, so, but they're using them at 10 p.m. So now I got to send emails later in the day, text later in the day, and let them respond when they're ready. Maybe they work nights or, and they sleep all day. Like, so I think it's going to get to, you're going to use your AI and I had a collection agency owner. He's not started with us yet, but he's gonna soon. And he said, pretty soon we're going to be we're going to be software company managers. And he's right. Like, you're going to have your people. You'll still be humans. I don't believe that AI will replace great collectors, but I do think how you use it will determine where you
Well,
are.
thinking about debt collection as a business, right? Like every other business, I think in the 6 use cases that we've talked about, there's other use cases that can apply to anybody. And some of those use cases, as we were planning for this, that we talked about was, and this kind of goes across both channels, right? Like
Industry.
this
Yeah.
works for debt collection, but it could work for anybody. Proposals and RFP assistance. So organizing our responses to RFPs and answering these more or less repetitive questions over time and building tools around that. Content generation, be testing for messaging itself. So if we're not as sophisticated as agentic AI, I think there's still a place and a use case for creating, modifying, managing content as it relates to using that for understanding impact of that content and modifying it for the future. Document summarization and contract analysis. So what did I agree to and why? And I did a podcast on that earlier last year with Eric Nevels from TrueAccord, where I thought
Yeah.
that was a really interesting conversation. We talked about contract analysis and contract management specifically, because it wasn't until COVID that we all started thinking about how are we going, what does our contract say about force majeure, right? And how is it
Right. Right.
different between the different clients that we have and all of that? Policy drafting and audit preparation, resume screening and candidate matching, all
HR.
administrative processes, right? That we could really benefit from improvement on employee training and performance feedback. And we've talked a little about that, but also financial forecasting and scenario model, understanding or predicting how our business is going to perform, not just the account of an individual consumer or a portfolio of consumers, but trying to look at things from a broader perspective. Now, I think it's interesting that we get so focused on being debt collectors that sometimes we have to open our vision a little bit and look at all of the different ways in which we can be using this technology to improve our businesses. Because even though we are debt collection businesses, we are still businesses and we have the same accounting and HR and hiring needs that every other business has.
Yep. Absolutely. And I think those tools can be really effective, right? Like, especially because we're so focused on debt collections, right? Like sometimes we're paying extraordinary outside counsel rates, like where we had a tool that looked
And
at the stuff,
expensive.
yeah, and cleaned it up and then sent the same agreements out, like this much easier, much easier. So they're out there. I used to use RFP 360. It was a great tool. And that was years ago. And I love that thing. It just took, just search your answers, pull them out. Why are you filling out the address, 100 times a year? Right? Like there was no point, right? Like that was all done. And it just highlighted the questions you really needed to answer because collections is a
It's a
process.
handful. In a
Yeah.
25-page RFP, there's like 6 questions that actually you've never seen before, and you need to really think about how you're going to answer and respond to it. But most of it you've at least seen before in some way, shape, or form.
And think of it too like this. Like I always think as a sales guy, right? Like people hate RFPs. I used to love them because it's an opportunity to open your doors up and show. If you answer it like we do it this way, this way, and this way, no one's like that doesn't like. But we do it this way because of this, this, and this is why we've been successful. And you get that across. You're going to get to this second stage, get the present, and that's where you're going to win it, right? Like to
I
me,
like the way you think, Mike. Do you know why I love RFPs? Because they are the perfect blend between marketing and compliance. And that's the world I live in, right? Coming from
it
having
is.
owned a
It is.
compliance management firm and owning a marketing firm, when you think about what an RFP is, it's the marriage of those two worlds. It's demonstrating your compliance while also selling your business while answering dry questions, which is
Boring.
not an easy task, which is
No,
why
people
there's
hate
so
them.
many
I hate
people
it.
that are specialized in it, especially across this industry.
But it's your chance to shine. Like you have to look at it like that. And we've done 3 of them and we've lost, so we stopped. No, don't do it like that. They're worthwhile. If you have a tool like this, it won't take you 2 weeks to answer. You'll use a lot of the same questions, readjust them per industry, and you can shine. That's how I look at these type of tools. You're right. HR, accounting, all there's tons of tools out there that can help you clean up these processes and make them way less time.
Well, Mike, as we kind of come into the final 10 minutes here of our podcast for today, I had one more question for you that I wanted to make sure that I got to because I think it's an interesting story and maybe we can kind of each tell our stories here. But for you, like, what was that aha moment where you said, AI, that's the future. Like, this is where I need to pivot my career to focus on this technology.
Think I saw technology coming first, right? Like when I like at the third traditional agency I worked for, and it was the same script, asking for payment in full, then settlement in full. I'm like, if they could pay in full, they wouldn't be here. They wouldn't be in this office, right? Especially on seconds, right? Like, what are we doing? Like, and why are we calling these people such a waste of time? I looked for better ways of doing things, right? Like, and I'm probably my first technology company I worked for was VoApps, and it just seemed logical to me. And out like why I always said an outbound phone call is the biggest waste of time you can do in collections. It's productive. I mean, it still works, right? Like I'm not saying that, but there's a more efficient way to do it. So that was a test. Then from there, when I discovered what True Accord was doing, I was like, okay, is this first of all like everybody else? Is this true? Is this real? And working there, like then I said, once you see and like understand technology, you start thinking about what else is out there, what else is available. And now that I'm here at EXL and I've seen not just agency products, collection products, I've seen customer service products, I've seen banking transaction insights, which like can determine money laundering. It can determine the likelihood you're going to go bad by the tint and color of your car, the tint of your windows and the color of your car. Like that kind of stuff is predictive. And who would ever think of that? So I think that's a big advantage we have is we're not just in collections, but we build collection products by collection people that the world's changing and I just wanted to be part of it. And it's great going back to places I worked and relationships I had and saying, hey man, I have something for you. Take a look or you have to see this because and let me know what you think. So it's been fun. It's been really, really fun. How did you get here?
So for me, it was a little different. I was dead set against using AI, ChatGPT, Gemini, any of these tools in the marketing firm. And so 2024, it was a fireable offense. If you were deploying this kind of technology, you weren't like, I'm paying you to write. Why aren't you writing? So that's the job at hand. And I was doing a podcast, or I remember it very specifically. It was a receivables podcast with John Noakes from National Credit Adjusters. And John's a really smart guy. like super smart guy. And he started talking, and he's like, well, I don't know the answers. So I'm experimenting and I'm trying. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know the answer? Like, how do you spend time on something if you don't, already know the answers? It's new technology. Like, how would I know? Like, that doesn't, if I don't try it, I'm never going to learn it. I'm never going to be able to deploy it. We're never going to find value in it. And so him and I have done, since we did a follow-up podcast, I guess it was sometime in 2025. But I spent between the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025, I spent about 300 hours prompt engineering and working my way through asking questions and
Which is a
learning and
perfectly
making
normal
mistakes.
behavior.
Yeah, totally normal behavior. Look, there were prompts that I spent 12 hours on, and then it would go off the rails, and I'd be like, well, that doesn't work. Like, that's trash now. I'm going to have to start over again because I couldn't reverse engineer what I had done to get to where I was. And then I started seeing the results. And the first big experiment that we did was we took a bunch of old webinars and we used AI to rewrite the YouTube descriptions, just the description on the videos in YouTube, right? Really low threat level, really low, expecting a low impact. And we did not get a low impact. We got some pretty serious visibility from that process. And the descriptions that it was writing based on the transcript of the video was significantly better than anything that we were drafting manually. The keyword density was right on target. Like, we were able to manipulate things based on the output that we were looking for versus having to sit there for hours and hours and hours to write a YouTube video description, which should not take that long. And I
If you
started
think
seeing that
about it, it
it would
should
drop
because
in shortcuts,
yeah,
right?
because
Like
it's
to the
so
video.
boring.
Well, it is, but it was being able to shortcut it. So like finding different segments of the podcast or the webinar and having to write that out manually was a hugely time consuming process. I mean, like literally hours for amount of content that was less than a page. But then I learned how to
And
create that
as a
fast, efficient.
consumer of your content, right? Like I love it. It's so much easier to find when I work. Like I do a lot of emails and I'll
Agreed.
be bored. And I tell you this all the time. I'll go to your site or YouTube and just search your stuff and listen to something, right? Like just to, it's so boring sending out emails. I'm old school. I don't do them with AI. I actually, hey, it's a relationship business and I write them, but I love it because you can find it so quick. And,
Mhm.
the greatest thing too is like just as a sales guy, you're lazy, right? Like your time is your only resource that you have to protect. So grabbing something quickly, I do appreciate it. And you learn while you're doing boring stuff. It's great.
And it's been a lot of fun for me to go through that process, exploring, experimenting, failing, trying again, finding new ways to do it, and then engaging other people on my team to be able to do the same things. But it requires a level of patience. It requires process oriented thinking. Right? There's definitely some requirements to it. And I'm not suggesting that everybody needs to spend 300 yet.
I didn't.
But similar to DCS in 2025 on stage, we did a prompt engineering class.
Yeah, that
And
was
it
good.
was
I was
come to
there.
the session, give me your problems, and we're going to engineer this on the fly. It was me and Brad Germain from
Fellow Florida
Imagine
Gator.
Cloud.
Yes.
So it was really interesting to hear what kind of challenges people were facing, people
And the
laughing at me
challenge
for
was
not
like
wearing a black shirt.
analyzing a portfolio for purchase, right? If I remember
We did.
correctly. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
we
was
did a
great.
portfolio analysis. We did some content generation. We did review of spreadsheets. We created a log of the privacy law changes over the last 24 months. But those were challenges that were tossed at us by people in the crowd in real time. We only had an hour segment or 50-minute segment to work with. And we were able to actually get through quite a few different
It was
examples
amazing.
with people. I thought it was a great session. And maybe we'll talk about doing something similar at the tail end of our first season of the
Yeah,
Applying AI podcast.
because you could accomplish like you did that in 50 minutes. I'm pretty sure it was 50, and like it was
I
amazing.
think it was. Well, look, this has been a lot of fun, Mike. I always appreciate an opportunity for us to chat. I'm really excited about all the things that we have planned coming up for the Applying AI podcast here in 2026, because it's going to remain a very hot topic. I think all of the organization, well, all but 7% of the organizations surveyed are actively trying to deploy artificial intelligence. And we've got use cases to talk about. We've got investment satisfaction to talk about. I mean, there is literally no end the content about AI for the debt collection industry this year.
That's going to be great. It's really going to be fun to do. And the topics are going to be a lot of fun. And the guests are going to be great. So I'm very excited. Thank you, Sam.
Well, I think that's a great way for us to wrap. Thank you, everybody, for listening to Applying AI, where we explore how to make artificial intelligence work in the real world of regulated industries. Subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube, and find more insights and resources at receivablesinfo.com. We'll see y'all next time.